Hey guys, it's Sean O'Connell, the managing director here at CinemaBlend, and I'm also the co-host of our weekly podcast, ReelBlend. Now, on that show, we bring you interviews with a lot of the top people from Hollywood's biggest movies coming to theaters on a regular basis, and we recently had a chance to sit down with Joaquin Phoenix to talk about his collaboration with Todd Phillips on the new Joker movie. Of course, the movie doesn't open until October 4th, but we really wanted you guys to hear what he had to say about his preparations to play the famous DC villain, so we made sure to cut together this spoiler-free version of our ReelBlend interview with Joaquin Phoenix on behalf of Joker, so go ahead and give that a listen. Real quick though, before you do that, make sure you go down and hit subscribe and turn on your notifications so you can keep up to date with everything that we're posting on our YouTube page. And until then, enjoy the interview.
So one of the quotes that you guys talking a lot about in the press tour is a quote from The Killing Joke where the Joker says, "I prefer to think of my past as a multiple choice." I'm curious, as an actor, what's that balance of, because one of the most interesting things about the Joker is his ambiguity, the fact that we don't know about him. What is that balance of you wanting to figure out who this guy is, but then also not ruining the thing that makes him interesting, which is that we don't know who this guy is?
Yeah, I mean, I think that's part of what attracted me to the role. It is kind of the antithesis of what the cliche of being an actor, which is what's my motivation. But you know, I grew very comfortable in the space of not knowing and not being able to answer the question. And in fact, there were times where we started to identify kind of what motivated certain behavior, and it just seemed wrong. It took all the life out of the scene. And so the more kind of ambiguous it was, the better it was for me.
You know, Joaquin, one of the things I found interesting...
Is this the last question?
Yes, this is I'm just skipping ahead to the end.
I knew I didn't like you guys. Shit, I'm in trouble.
So one thing I found interesting, I was talking to Todd yesterday for the junket, and I was asking him about the sequences where you're either bending over or you're walking to a door and we see like the bones from obviously the character, and I thought maybe there was some type of effect added there, a visual effect, a digital, and he said no, that's completely Joaquin. And he said that the bone on this side as you walk to the door that's kind of protruding out, he said that's a real thing. I wanted to talk to you about what that was like to perform with that element and the idea of like, is that something that like, was that from an injury that occurred? I was curious what that was.
No, I was just born with it. It's just born with I don't really know what it is. The just bones aren't connected properly, so it's like a slight protrusion. But it's really noticeable when you get down to like that weight. But what was the other question?
Well, just
this
the idea.
Is your last question.
This is my last question.
Make it count.
But just the idea of like that was all physically you. There was nothing enhanced. Did you have to physically do anything to make it manipulated so it looked the way it did? Like when you're bending over, was that all just the way it looked naturally?
That's the way it looked naturally. You know, obviously it was an extreme weight loss, so it starts kind of sticking out. But I mean, I might have bent over a little bit more to try and emphasize it.
Put your elbow up
just a little bit, kind of push it up. But, you know, it was almost like metamorphosis. You know, we wanted to see kind of, I mean, for me, all of it was, when is the Joker going to emerge? And it's this part of Arthur that has been suppressed throughout his life, and how are we going to see that manifest itself? And there's both like an emotional, mental, and physical kind of transformation that occurs. So it was just an important part of the character that seemed really obvious in the beginning.
Do you see a divide, a very clear divide between Arthur and Joker?
Yeah, I mean, it's tough because, you know, it's the same person, but it's really, because there's so many different ways of looking at this character. It fucking did my head in. It's so hard to know what's real or what isn't. For instance, the laugh. The laugh is described as an affliction, right? As some kind of uncontrollable fit of laughter that he has. And that's what I believed it to be as we started shooting. And then I started working with Frances Conroy, who plays my mom. And I don't know what it was about this interaction, but something made me distrust the things that she had told me when I was younger. And I started thinking about the laugh, and I imagined that this part of Arthur, Joker, that must have been in school and kind of breaking out into laughter at the most like inappropriate moment. And how would a parent deal with that? And how would they talk to the principals? And they might say, like, he has a condition, it's something that he can't control. And it's something that he's been told his whole life to where he believes it. But then I started wondering whether that was actually true. I started thinking of it as like, no, it's the Joker that's trying to emerge. I don't really fucking know which is right. You know, I don't know if it was a condition or if it's the Joker trying to emerge, but I think that's another example of the thing that I didn't need to answer, nor did I want to. It was just this movie and this character. I mean, all movies, I think, evolve and they become something different than what's on the page, but I think this character and film more than others I've worked on went through kind of a radical change as we were filming.
That's a great transition into where I'm going, which is...
That was the last question.
Yeah, we're going to get you out of here. We're going to get you out of here on this one.
Now we're just talking.
This is not on record at all.
Okay, good.
We watch a ton of these movies, and we understand the business behind them, and you're protecting these brands and everything. And I swear,
I'm not protecting shit.
No. I mean studios. But so we're coming out of this film, and we keep saying to ourselves, we cannot believe
how does this movie
exists.
Yeah.
That they let you guys do this with an IP like Joker, a recognizable character like Joker. So I'm just curious during the production if there were notes coming back that just said, you guys can't. What are you doing with this classic character that we?
Never. I mean, I think usually actors are shielded from those kind of notes, anyways. But from my understanding. We never had that. I mean, they were really hands off and trusting Todd to make the film that he wanted to make.
You know, a lot of people are talking about how much weight you lost, but I read initially that you wanted the character to be overweight. And I was wondering if that was true and what was it about this character? Because when I think of the Joker, I think of a very slender guy, but what made you want him to be overweight? Would that have changed the character at all?
Does it seem like it'd be easier?
to gain the weight rather than lose it?
It's that simple.
The very first bit of research that I did was about medication and the side effects of medication. And everybody on these boards was talking about these dramatic changes in their weight, whether it be putting on weight or losing weight. And there's something so fucking tragic about taking a medication because you feel out of step with the world, and then you have these side effects that magnify that feeling. And so I said to Todd, I think we need to have something that is drastic to kind of show this, and it's based in reality, and I think it's really worth exploring. And I suggested we put on weight because I've done the losing weight thing before, and it sucks. I was like,
Paul Thomas Anderson, take that.
Yeah, I don't want to do it again. But Todd was really smart, and he said, no, I really think it's the other way, and I knew that it was going to be that way, but I just wanted to give it like one little push.
Give it a shot.
You didn't say that in front of De Niro, did you? Because of that.
No. But it was amazing because there's the physicality and how you look, and that's valuable, but I think more than that is how it makes you feel. And Arthur is somebody who is like constantly searching for validation and acknowledgement and love. Like he just wants to consume people's adoration. Really, it's what he needs. And I think in some ways, I had that feeling like I was constantly dissatisfied. Having that kind of level of hunger makes you just think differently. But I think it made me feel my body in a way that I don't normally kind of feel. And I think it allowed me to find a lot of the movement that ended up becoming such an important part of the character. And I don't know why, but I think you just become hyper aware of your body at that point. Like you think about it differently. And so it ended up, being twofold, something that affected me kind of emotionally and mentally, but also altered the way I felt about myself physically.
I'd like to get into the makeup if we could. Obviously,
Sure.
the first time that they showed anything from the film, it was Todd on the Instagram showing you the first look of you. And it was almost like that was a moment when everybody sort of went, I don't really know what to make of this film, to all of a sudden they were like, oh my God, I'm all in. Like, it's his face. It's what he's putting forward. It's his identity. I want to ask one quick thing before we get into the makeup, but are there moments throughout the film where Arthur is getting more white in scenes before he fully transitions, or is that something that I'm reading too much
what
into
do you
it?
mean?
Like there are scenes where he's Arthur, but there's first there's a little trace of white paint
On the bus, there's like
And
white
then
paint
later
on it.
there's
That's
a little
because
more.
it's meant to be left out. He's supposed to have come from work, so it's him having kind
Okay.
of wiped off, but not gotten all of it.
Okay, so it
all
wasn't
on.
like Joker coming up a little bit
No,
more.
but that sounds good, man. We should start
saying that.
Yeah, I'm
You
gonna
can
say-
take that if you
for
want
all
to.
the European press, I'm going to say that. Thank
hear
you
that
so
answer.
much.
You're welcome.
I'm glad.
They're about to get really
Inside
good
him,
interviews.
Yeah.
and he's coming up through him.
Yeah.
Did you have how much input did you have into the final look? Did you go through a lot of tries, or
No, honestly, Todd sent me a Photoshop photo of me from another film with the makeup on, and it was already designed. And he said, "What do you think? Do you have any notes?" And I was like, "I'm fucking great." I wouldn't know what to say. The only kind of input that I had was I started kind of practicing putting the makeup on myself, and when I'd put all the white paint on, I thought there was something really haunting and unsettling about that look. And so initially, one of the end scenes, I was meant to have to be in kind of full Joker makeup. But I just thought it might be interesting if we just did the kind of white painted face. And there's something really creepy about that look.
Yeah, it's pretty wicked stuff. But a follow up to that, the makeup, and this might be a stupid question, but if you're the character of Joker and Arthur applies his own makeup, do you essentially become your own makeup artist?
No, I thought that I would, and I started kind of practicing, and then we went in to do tests to test out different looks, and the key makeup designer Nikki did the makeup. And I was like, well, obviously we're going to let the pro do this because it looks so much better than what I did. But you also get into issues of continuity.
Interesting.
So it's like, you really have to match things. And so it took a real pro. But she fucking did such an amazing job that I was like, I'm obviously going to let her do it.
And the tongue thing was cool. That was cool, yeah.
You told me something interesting yesterday. You said that there were scenes you thought were going to be hard that ended up actually being easy, and there were scenes that you thought were going to be easy that ended up being hard. I was curious if we could focus on the latter part of that. Like, what were the scenes that you really thought you were going to be able to blow through that ended up actually being harder for you as an actor?
That's a good question. I don't know. It's so hard for me to remember. It was so long ago. What was the question?
You
Is
told
this
me.
the last question?
Yeah.
Don't tease him.
He's
Don't
going
give
to
him
leave,
that.
and we're going to stay.
There will be a last question one day.
Tell me the question. This is
this is
now
a
you're
3-hour
saying
interview,
This is the
Joaquin.
result.
This is 3 hours.
This is the result of 2 days of
And it's
non
live
we
too.
get
We're
it.
live.
Okay,
We're
good. Well,
engaging
now
you.
it's exciting.
You told me yesterday that there were scenes that you
Yeah,
thought
I
were going to
remember that
be
part.
and I'm just curious, what were the scenes that you thought you were just going to be able to walk through? Not walk through, but
Right.
were going to be easier
I
that
know.
you found
and
to be
I
more
still don't have an answer. I was hoping that I would make you ask the question again, and during that time, I'd come up with an answer.
Good strategy.
But no, I can't, I really can't. I can't remember. I don't know. I can't. Think.
Okay, well, let me add, we're sitting in the shadow of you on the steps right there. Would that be one that was easier or harder than you thought it was going to be?
And did you fall at some point? Because that is crazy.
No, what I made a huge error, and it's so embarrassing, and I don't know how it happened. Except sometimes you just like prepping, you're doing all this work, and sometimes things get away from you. But I never practiced the dance on steps. I'd done it on flat ground, and not only that, but those particular steps are very. What is it when it's this way? That's not width. It's
I know
not
what you mean.
length.
Yeah.
So what is it? Is it length? Maybe it is length.
Yeah. I think so.
Yeah. They were
Depth. Is depth?
because I think depth is that.
Okay.
It's more.
Nobody can see.
They
We're
were
doing a lot
longer
of
in front
hand
of your
movements
face.
here, people.
Yeah.
For those listening,
Yeah. It was
You know,
longer in front of you. It was longer than you expected in front of you.
It was shorter.
shorter.
Than expected.
Okay.
And so I had practiced the dance a particular way with my toes pointed forward. And then I got there and I was like, I won't be able to do this.
Yeah, we
So
see
I
your
had
feet
to,
right
like,
there behind you, like they're protruding outward like that. Yeah.
Right. And it was unexpected. But I think the other thing that I didn't expect is that there were alongside in those buildings on the side of the stairs were apartments filled with teenagers that were banging on the window, being like, "Fuck you, Phoenix!"
Oh my God! Are you kidding me?
And that was unexpected, and I was like, "This is bullshit." And then whenever that happens, I think of like, I go like, "That just doesn't seem right." And then I think like about professional athletes, where it's like 0.2 seconds left and you have a free throw and people are like waving behind you, be like, "You suck." You're like, oh, that's what it is to be a professional. Like under the best circumstances, anybody can act. But it's like when you just want to fucking run away because there's cool teenagers screaming at you.
God, that would have knocked me so far off my game.
We were just saying before you walked in, like I get scarier. I get more scared going and speaking to high schools than I do talking because high school kids are scary, man.
Sure, yeah.
Did this feel a bit more indie in the way that you guys were able to stay light on your feet, pivot when you needed to pivot, go after something that maybe you didn't plan to go after?
Not really, because like indie, when you're shooting like 6 weeks, you don't normally have the time. Right. Did you say indie?
Indie, yeah.
Okay, yeah. You know, I think that's what was incredible about this experience, and really Todd knew in advance. I remember early on he said, I'm really fighting for more days. And I was like, come on, we don't have enough. I mean, how much are you going to fight? It's fine. We'll figure it out.
Todd, is this the last shot? Come on.
But he was so right. I mean, he really knew that we would need more time, and so I think that the freedom that we had, the freedom that we had from Warner Brothers to kind of shoot it and discover it was really key. I think more so than you might imagine, because there were some really radical changes to the character several weeks into shooting.
Can you share anything?
I don't know how. I mean, like it's always the case when you make movies. You start off with this vacuum. You're alone in a house and you're kind of reading through the script and you start imagining things. You start playing with it and rehearsing for yourself. And I think it always evolves. But in this one, I'm not sure what happened, but I had an idea. For some, sounds so stupid now. That I thought was really good, and I think we started going down a particular road with Arthur, a way of approaching that character and his behavior, and it was based on a reference that I'd found. This kid that is undergoing a psychiatric evaluation. And I thought it was really interesting. He had a particular way of behaving that I thought was applicable, and it might have been at times. But then what happened? Are you guys sleeping?
No, we're like totally waiting. I can't wait to hear the story.
Thank you for sharing.
Yeah,
this.
please, thank you.
But then what happened is, in the 6th week of shooting, was the first time that I played Joker, and I was really angry about that because I thought that it should wait until the end, and I didn't want to kind of shoot it in the middle, but for several reasons we had to. And I was Joker. We shot those sequences I think for 4 days, and we finished and we shot the last day of the week on Friday. We shot the bathroom scene with Thomas Wayne, and that was a weird transition, and it was a struggle. And after that, after playing Joker, I just suddenly realized, Todd and I got together and we talked about everything we shot, and I said, I think that we've been missing something, and like I feel like we're going down a road that seems wrong, and both the look, the hair is wrong, and the way I'm wearing the wardrobe is wrong, and a lot of behavior. And so we kind of, in that moment over that weekend, kind of reconceived the character and kind of realized the mistakes that we'd made. And so it was like a really crazy time, but I became so grateful and thankful that we shot Joker when we did, because exploring that side of the character really allowed me to see this other side. And there are just some things that you can't anticipate. And I think especially with this character, it was just alive in a way that other characters aren't. You can't put your finger on it. And so it was a wild process. I'd never experienced anything quite like that. I have
amazing.
A little bit.
That's amazing. Thank you so much for
Yeah,
sharing that.
I hope that's okay.
That's amazing.
Those are the sort of conversations that we do this podcast
That's why
for.
we do the podcast.
Yeah.
'Cause we want craft. Yeah.
I'll get you out of here on this last one, I swear to God. Last one. This is more of a big picture one. When we look from the outside in, it feels like every actor working, not every actor, but the major ones working now are pressured to be part of a comic book franchise, get attached to a Marvel film or do a DC film. You guys have figured out a way to go about that, but is that something that we're totally imagining? Do you feel like I want to find a really good role, and a lot of the roles now are prevalent in the comic book genre. It's a lot of things that are making their way to film. I want to find a good one. I should do a good one. Is that a reality or all? Because I know at one point you were really close to playing Doctor Strange for Marvel, unless that wasn't true. And I was just curious if you were looking at projects like, I want to do one, but I want to make sure that it's a really good one to do.
No, I wasn't looking at it that way. I mean, for me, I'm always just attracted to the filmmaker, and so the size of the budget, or whether it's studio or independent, doesn't really matter to me. I wasn't interested in this movie because I thought I need to do a superhero movie.
Cool, Joaquin. This has been
Seriously, thank you, man.
Pleasure.
You're a really good guy. I appreciate
That's
it.
great. Thank you.
This is one example of so many really cool interviews that we get to feature on the ReelBlend podcast. Recently, we spoke to people like Joe and Anthony Russo the week after they put out Avengers Endgame. We sat down with Quentin Tarantino to discuss Once Upon a Time in Hollywood, and we had Kevin Feige on the show to talk about the Marvel Cinematic Universe. We are going out of our way to try to bring the top filmmakers to the ReelBlend podcast on a weekly basis, so do me a favor, go out of your way and subscribe to us. You will be notified every single time a new episode of ReelBlend drops. In addition to subscribing to the podcast, do me a favor and hit subscribe and turn on your notifications for this YouTube channel, because again, we're posting all sorts of exclusive content here on our YouTube page, and we want to make sure that you guys keep up to date with every single thing that we're sharing.
Send in the clown.